In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Today I'm here with my very special guest, Gala Darling, and she wrote this amazing book, Radical Self-Love, A Guide to Loving Yourself and Living Your Dreams. So welcome to the show, Gala.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, definitely. Now, I know your book is just a bestseller and flying off the shelves. For you, that's always definitely a good thing. And it's so inspiring to see the transformation that people are going through in connecting with you in your book.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have this. We have these preconceived notions about who we are, or we relate to a label. You know, I'm a mother, or I'm an accountant, or I'm an only child, or whatever it is that kind of has given you meaning and some direction in life. But I feel that those labels can be very limiting. And so what I really am trying to do is encourage women to see themselves more holistically, not to apply a label to themselves, and just allow themselves to experiment and to play and to rediscover their own interests. I think especially, for younger women getting into relationships, it's very easy to kind of lose yourself in that other person. Especially in the beginning, it's so exciting. You want to spend all your time together, and it's very easy to forget who you are. And so I really just want to encourage women to be very active in that self-discovery process.
Well, and for a lot of us, that's a never-ending journey, it feels like, you know.
Absolutely. And hopefully that never ends, hopefully you're discovering new things about yourself your whole life.
Well, and that's really the great path to be on, is that continuous self-discovery. What I liked is that your book really talks about how people can use different techniques to do self-healing now. I know in 2006 you started the tapping technique. So how can our listeners either learn this practice, or when's a good time for them to start?
And now is a great time to start. Yesterday would have been the best time to start, but now is as good as any. So in terms of tapping, there's a lot of information about it online, which you can just Google. But I also have a little course, which is 8 lessons that show you how to tap. And I take you through like a morning and evening tapping practice and that kind of thing. And the URL for that is galadarling.com/tapthat. So there are many techniques, and it's really about what's right for your budget, what's right for your time, and what feels good to you. I think when we're choosing a healing modality or a therapy, we need to go with something that lights us up and makes us feel excited. Otherwise, it just feels like a chore. And working on yourself is hard enough as it is, so you don't want to add another layer of resistance.
No, definitely not. I mean, once you start down that path, some of it's not all sparkles and kittens. I mean, some days it's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
A bad hair day.
Yes, a bad hair day of the soul that happens all day long. Yeah, totally. It can be rough. And I think, even someone like me, and I've been writing about this stuff for 10 years, I'm in a relationship right now that is still relatively new, like 10 months or so, and the amount of growth and transformation is massive. And, man, it is not always pretty. But it's all growth. It's all evolution. And I really believe that we have to be very active in transforming ourselves. Otherwise, we kind of wake up one day and we feel terrible and stuck, and we don't know why. And I feel like the best way to avoid that is to keep being active and finding the problems and the resistance and the limiting beliefs and busting through them.
So let's say there's a woman who's great in every area of her life, but she's got maybe angst with her body, or maybe it's finances, whatever the case may be. What do you recommend that they do?
I think the first step to healing or changing anything is gratitude. So looking at, even though you have a problem perhaps, looking at what's good about that, where the benefits are, and also just being grateful for what you have in life generally. Like if a woman has everything under control except how she feels about her body, she's doing pretty well. You know what I mean? So it's important to give ourselves kudos and be able to appreciate what we have, because when you don't appreciate what you already have, nothing will ever be enough. You'll always be operating from that place of lack and scarcity. So the first thing I think really is appreciation. And then, I'm really big on ritual and manifesting and creating what we want. So maybe write down how you want to feel about your body or your finances or whatever your pain point is, and write it all in the present tense. So, I love my thighs. I think they're so beautiful, or whatever. And making that something that you look at all the time and feeding yourself those messages really makes a difference. I actually recently started doing these workouts that my friend Patricia Marino designed called Intensity, and she pairs physical movement with affirmations, and it is so amazing. She actually did a little 5-minute video on Well and Good, which is just a super quick workout, which I've started to do every morning, where you're saying, like, I'm powerful beyond measure, I'm stronger than I seem. Like, it's so great. And it sounds cheesy, but when you're using your body and saying these things, it makes you feel unstoppable. And every time I do that workout in the morning, I feel so empowered, and I have such a great productive day because I'm really strengthening my mind every morning. And I think that's something that we forget to do, is to look after our body and our mind every day. It really is an active daily practice.
I'd agree with you 100%. It really is, because, it's so easy to get kind of stuck in the day, and all of a sudden you're up and you're running, and if there are kids involved or pets or whatever, you're just on to the next thing without taking care of you first. And then how can you give anybody anything if, your cup's not full,
Absolutely. And it's so easy to be in that reactionary place, just constantly responding to a child or a partner or a phone or an email or whatever. And it's really important that we just take that time every morning to get centered and just create kind of some space for ourselves in the day. And it's like you said, if your cup's not full, you cannot help anyone else. Or you can, but you'll be resentful, and that creates bigger problems. So it's very, very important that we prioritize ourselves. And there are so many women who feel that is selfish. It's actually the most selfless thing you can do. Because when you are feeling good about yourself and you're looking after yourself, then you can look after other people even more.
Yeah, it really allows you to be more present and be in the moment with people, as opposed to, like how you're saying, resent them because it's like, gosh, I've got all these other things I should be doing, or I'm exhausted.
Right. Right. Or you're listening to somebody, but your eye is on your phone because you're waiting for this email or whatever. And really being with somebody in the moment is such a gift, and it's such a rare thing. I love that I have friends with whom the phones just stay in our bags the whole time we're together. And that's a really special thing these days.
Oh, it is. It is. I've got a thing with my friends that when we go and we've, got a bite to eat, or, we're going out for a bite to eat or what have you, we have our cell phones at the end of the table, and the first one that picks it up buys dinner for everybody. So,
right.
But
I love
it's nice to be able, but it's so nice to be able to have that time and be unplugged and really be present, and not so, because it's really, just another distraction in many ways,
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think having the rules like that around the way we use technology is really important these days, because I think especially at this time, if we don't create boundaries, we really are available to everyone all the time. And so it's our responsibility to enforce those boundaries and say, this is when I'm available, this is when I'm not available, this is what is acceptable, and this is what is not. And if we don't do that, we really are at other people's beck and call all the time. And then you wonder why you wake up and you hate your life, like, come on.
Like, what happened? No, and that's
right.
perfect, because, setting boundaries is so important, especially as you start clearing away the clutter in your life, because a lot of times what I've, discovered just on my personal journey is the stuff that I run into is maybe situations or relationships or, just mostly relationships with people that I have that maybe lacked boundaries. And so there's that feeling like, gosh, I'm not feeling, appreciated or fulfilled or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and that's really hard. And, enforcing a boundary or even bringing it up can be so uncomfortable. But I love Tim Ferriss, and he once said that you can measure your success by the number of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like nothing really changes unless you're willing to get really honest and speak the truth to yourself, firstly, and then be able to say that to other people and not be afraid of what the response will be, because the truth is you can never control how somebody is going to take something that you say. All you can really change is how you respond to them. So, we owe it to ourselves to be honest about how we feel and what we need from other people. A lot of us never tell other people what we need in order to be happy, and then we wonder why they can't read our minds, why we want to stab them in their sleep, Crazy.
Yeah, that would do it. That must be the theme for the month, because I've been talking with people that kind of feel the same, that have had the same, thought process as well as far as, being able to authentically say what it is that you want and not be afraid of what they're going to say, just like you're saying. It's because we only have to worry about keeping our side of the road clean. That's our job.
Absolutely. And I always feel that if you don't ask for things, there's no chance you'll ever get them. So you might as well ask. And even if they say, well, I can't do that for you, you're no worse off than you were originally. Nothing has really changed. At least now you know, and you can move on to the next thing.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Now, in your book, you have a quote that you've got many quotes, but one here, I'm quoting you. I hope I have this 100% right. If not, you can correct me. But you talk about any old fool can find something to moan about, but it takes skills and effort to see the good in life. And I really appreciated that because that's so true, because you really have to focus on all the wonderful and positive things that happen within a day. There's always something to, like how you're saying, to be appreciative of during your walk.
Absolutely. And, when I was growing up and I was, a depressed goth teenager, very cynical by nature. I was cynical when I was 7 years old, and it was so, I think it's very easy to slip into the mindset that being cynical or being negative is intelligence, or it's a way of demonstrating our wit, or, a lot of people bond over misery. That's very common. I'm sure some of the people listening have friendships where all they really do with those two people is complain about a thing, a work, a boss, or whatever. And so that kind of thing can be very bonding, but I think it's really so much more difficult to be happy because you really have to work at it. And it's like I was saying about doing that, mental and physical workout every morning. It's about strengthening your mind, and that is so important. So it's really, that can be really difficult, but the results are so worth it. And, you're not going to get it perfect every day. There are always going to be some days where you feel like, oh, well, that was a wash. But it's okay. At least you tried. And, the truth is that being around negative people and complainers and whiners is just so draining. Ultimately, nobody is going to want to be around you if that's your mindset. So if you want to be alone forever, it's a great tactic. But if you would prefer to have friends and lovers and good family connections, then you really got to step it up.
Oh, definitely. And that kind of brings me into my next question here. You had talked, in your book about friendships and just how you were discussing here a minute ago. But, would you consider the number one friendship killer? Is that the negativity, or is there more to that?
I'm not sure if negativity is the number one friendship killer. I think selfishness might be. You know, I've had a few friends in the past who would only call me when there was a problem because they wanted to get my advice or whatever, and they would never say, like, how are you doing? They really didn't care how I was doing. It was always about them and their drama. And, you know, those are people that I had to ultimately cut out of my life because that's not a productive friendship, and I would be resentful, and their name would come up on my phone, and I would think, oh, I don't even want to answer this call. So I think probably selfishness is the number one killer of friendships, honestly. And, you know, I have so many friends who live in England and New Zealand and Australia and all over the world, and I'm very blessed to have those friendships, but the reason it works is really because we prioritize each other. You know, we make the time, we send emails, we think of one another, we tag each other in Instagram pictures that we think are funny or whatever. Like, we really are thinking about our friends all the time, and that really is the key to a good friendship. I think if you have great friends, then a time zone is nothing but a number. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can still have a very deep and fulfilling and stimulating friendship with someone you only see 3 times a year, and that's perfectly fine.
You know, and I would agree with you on that as well, because I've got friends all around the world, and it's the same thing. You know, it's all about that. But friendship is work. You know, you have to be.
It is.
You have to show that you care. And you know, and I know my friend's going to listen to this because I always get on her about this. But I always tell her, when you don't call your friends back, you're really saying that you don't care about them. And so she'll hurry up and call everyone back, and she'll be good for a couple months, and then she'll go off the radar again, you know, for a bit.
Right.
But, yeah.
I mean, some people just live in their own worlds, and if you know that it's not they're being malicious, it's just that they're slightly absent-minded, then that's okay. But yeah, like, I just came back from a trip to Las Vegas with 2 of my best friends, one who lives in Oregon, one who lives in the United Kingdom, and I'm in New York. And, you know, we see each other a few times a year, and it's so good for us. You know, having those female friendships is so deeply important to me, and it's something that I never really had when I was younger. And I think because I was so negative and cynical and unhappy, I really judged other women very unfairly, and I was one of those girls who was like, oh, I don't really have female friends. I only have male friends because female friends are too dramatic. Which was really just me talking about myself. Like, I was the dramatic one. It wasn't them. It was just me. But now that I'm older and I have these female friends, like, the way that they light up my soul and make me feel good and have my back 100% is so important. And, you know, I feel like boyfriends and husbands and lovers and whatever, they can come and go. But your real, true friendships, you will always have them as long as you treat them with respect and care.
Yeah, and you know, and there's such delicious relationships to be in, you know, because of that. I mean, there's that just that camaraderie, and really, women will understand other women to a degree that men cannot. I mean, there's just no way.
Yes,
you know,
right. I totally agree. But yeah, it's like you said, friendships are work. Like, all relationships are work to some degree. And I think we have to expect that. And I think to expect that everything is always going to be easy and seamless and trouble-free and you're going to be able to read each other's minds, I really think that expectation sets us up to fail. There are no relationships like that, really. I think maybe unless you're like a twin or a triplet or something, then you're realistically never going to have that kind of connection with someone else, and that is okay. And in fact, it's probably a good thing because it teaches us to communicate our needs.
I would say so. I mean, even as a kid, I mean, I have a cousin that was a few months younger than me, and we were fighting over bottles in the crib. So, I mean, it's nice to be able to, you know, have those conflicts because, you know, you do grow up a little bit more well-rounded. You know, you're able to handle and adjust a little bit better, I think, to some degree. So. Right.
For sure. And I always think, you know, if you have a disagreement with a friend, then that teaches you something about them and yourself as well. And everybody gets stronger, and I really respect people for being able to say how they feel and what they think rather than bottling it up and being passive aggressive and then that coming out in some, resentful way down the line. It's always harder to just say what the problem is, but it's so worth it. And it creates this really pure friendship where there are kind of no resentments dragging behind it. And that the channels of communication are just really clear and open. That's such a special feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great to be able to have that openness. I mean, and you're right. I mean, we're all going to have conflicts or disagreements or different views of opinions with, our friends or, people we're in a relationship with. But being able to come to them and say, hey, I'd like to talk with you. I think, we need to chat about this. Is this the most adult way to handle things? Now, I know that you talk about manifesting like magic into our lives. What would be one of the ways that you would suggest that we do that?
Well, there are so many ways. So firstly, my definition of magic is simply having the ability to see something with new eyes. So it's not about, a puff of pink smoke and a rabbit appears or, you open your door and there's a Ferrari in your driveway. That's not my definition of magic, although that would be fun. My definition of magic is just being able to see things differently. And I think that's what, especially modern kind of witchcraft or ritual is really about. It's about being able to see something in a different way, getting that sense of perspective that perhaps you didn't have before. So one of the ways that I like to manifest things is to, be really grateful. So gratitude is such a big part of my daily practice. And I actually have a lot of my Instagram captions are just little gratitude lists because it really brings me into the present. And I feel that when you're appreciating what you have right now, it kind of opens all the channels around you and it enables new things to come in. It's kind of like clearing the energy around yourself. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling where you just feel kind of like energetically stuck and heavy and you're kind of in a bad mood. For me, the best way of dealing with that is always to switch to gratitude and to think about what's really good in my life, what's working. If you are looking for a problem, your mind will always find one. The ego loves a problem. And if that's what you go looking for, then that's what you're going to find. I said to my boyfriend the other day, I was like, I realized this morning that every day when I wake up, my mind automatically goes to yesterday and scans for trouble. It looks through for the things that went wrong or times that I was hurt or times that you didn't say what I wanted you to say, and it focuses on those things. And that is so destructive. So one of the ways to deal with that is to get into that state of gratitude and make it a daily practice every day.
Instead of trying to be a perfect person in a perfect life, I think the best thing we can do is be present and be ourselves.
No, I totally agree with that. And I think it's great that the story has changed from wait for a man to do it yourself, and that's great. I'm just waiting for it to move beyond so you can be famous as an end goal. Because I think from what we can all see, being famous doesn't guarantee you any happiness or peace of mind or anything positive, really. Like, there is no way that being famous benefits you, actually, other than maybe getting some free stuff that you probably don't need, because if you're famous, you probably have money, so you don't need free stuff. That always drives me crazy, like gifting sweets at the Oscars. Like, those people don't need free anything. Can you give it to, like, the people on Skid Row who are, like, half a mile down the road from you? But, yeah, I think, being famous doesn't guarantee anything positive other than a lack of privacy. It's really the only thing that is part of that package that you're definitely going to get. And it's just not a good goal, to me, at least. There are so many other things we could do with our time that would help other people. Fame doesn't help anyone.
No, and it's so fickle, too. That's the thing. So you might be famous today, and that's, but unfortunately, I think we're still waiting for some of that story to change in regards to how women are judged in Hollywood or from a famous point of view. a lot of it is dependent on looks, which is truly unfortunate. So it just kind of weaves this really bad web of, never ending. I mean, because you can't be pretty enough, you can't be young enough, you can't be thin enough, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very toxic. It's very destructive. So it's really our responsibility to look at the messages that we're fed by the media and be very discriminating about what we choose to take on board and what we choose to repeat in front of our daughters or our sisters or our friends, because everybody is picking up stuff all the time. And I think if we can be a positive role model, then that's the best thing we can really do to help others.
And being there and saying, hey, that outfit looks beautiful on you, or you look fabulous, in what you're wearing. Really being there and being 100% supportive. So, well,
absolutely.
I know we have a few more minutes here, so I wanted to see what last thoughts did you want to leave with our listeners?
What a good question. I think I would say that learning to love yourself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. You will never leave you. So the best thing you can do is start to learn to be comfortable with your own company, to appreciate the things that you already have, and to appreciate your unique talents and gifts and beauty. Other people may not always see it in the way that you wish they would, and I know that can be painful and hurtful. But if you can see it in yourself, then it doesn't really matter how other people feel about you. You can validate yourself, and I think that's really what we should all be striving for, is the ability to generate that own self-love and self-acceptance rather than waiting to have that mirrored back at us by somebody else, because we don't know that we're always going to get that, And so I think learning to love yourself is really an ongoing, it's a daily process. I'm still working on it, and it's been 10 years, and I know that I've barely even scratched the surface. But it has made my life exponentially better in every single area of my life, and I could not possibly have fathomed that my life could be this amazing right now when I was a 16-year-old depressed goth girl living in New Zealand. So I really feel that loving yourself is the key to unlocking everything you've ever wanted, because it means you believe in yourself enough to try. And that's really what I want for all women, is to believe in themselves enough to try, to take risks, and live the life they've always wanted.
Well, I think that's the best thing anyone could hope for, is to live your best life, be authentic, and to love yourself and start on that journey of being able to, as your book says it, have that radical self-love for yourself.
Yep, absolutely. And I think, it's possible for everybody, but it's a question of whether you're brave enough to take that first step, because it's not easy. But if you're willing to try, there are so many other women who are doing the same. You are not alone. There is so much support for you. And we're in it together. Let's make our lives so amazing that we have the best, craziest stories to tell our grandchildren. Let's make that the goal, I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, I think that is too. Well, I appreciate your honesty and bravery, and for being with us here today. I mean, it took a lot of bravery to be on the journey you were, and then to be so open and share it with so many people in the way that you have. And I could tell so many people, me included, really appreciate everything that you're putting out there for us.
Thank you so much. That's very sweet of you.
Well, thank you. And so our listeners can go ahead and go to your website at galadarling.com. They can also pick up your book, Radical Self-Love. It's available pretty much at all bookstores, Amazon, and at Barnes & Nobles. And again, I'd like to thank you, Gala, for being with us on the show today.
Thank you. You're so welcome. It was my pleasure.
We've been speaking with Gala Darling. You can visit her website at galadarling.com. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com. Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074, 630-881-1074.
Discover the book publisher's weekly calls compelling. Piper, Once and Again, is the breathtaking debut novel by psychic medium Caroline E. Zani. Death has no power over love. Piper, Once and Again, is a story of hope for the hopeless and faith amidst tragedy. Follow Piper on a journey of loss and redemption as she tries to find the one man who can help her figure out why she must be Piper, Once and Again. www.carolinezani.com.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne.
And I'd like to introduce my very special guest, Robert-tremblay. Now, Robert wrote a book, 20 Seconds, True Account of Survival and Hope, and has had an NDE, which I'm very excited to talk to him about. So welcome to the show, Robert.
Oh, thanks, Marianne, for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Oh, definitely. And, and I I really appreciate your book. It was very, very open. There are parts of it that, it took great bravery to write about, because coming from a background where, you obviously were very grounded, it was quite a journey.
Well, if grounded in this sense, I think it might be more fitting to say I was very egotistical and in such a hurry. So this was uncharted territory for me. This was my belief roundhouse, if you will. So like many, imagine my surprise. So
I bet. Well, and I know that, you are a U.S. Army veteran, and you had worked for the police department, law enforcement, and retired from both?
I actually left law enforcement after a few years and ended up getting into private investigative work, and which led me into the finance industry, teaching how to find people in the world. So that led to a 20-year career in the automotive industry, teaching management and consulting and problem-shooting dealerships and fixing dealerships. So I've had quite a swing in my evolution, where I went from dealing with people at the worst times of their lives to, frankly, one of the best times should be when you buy something like a car. And so I taught a lot of management experience with that issue, trying to put a new spin onto that ugly system of, going in there and getting tortured by a salesman.
Yeah, that's kind of still what it might be in some cases, but it's great that you have that background. So, you've been able to have that, you have to be a very, to be an investor, anything, you have to be just so, and grounded keeps coming up for me, but just really kind of placed in this world. You can't be woo-woo.
Totally.
And try to find people on skip traces, meeting people at their worst, or even when it comes, even though there's been a shift, for some time, but when it comes to consulting, people want the business. They want to hear the business side.
Yeah. Yeah, and oddly, nobody likes to hear what they're doing wrong. So it's a bit of a tiptoe through the tulips of the human psyche to walk into a dealership, and I did it all throughout the country for whether it was 5 days or 6 months. I would sign a contract to go in and fix somebody's store, and that can be a jagged pill when someone walks in and says, "Yeah, we need to pretty much change everything." So yeah, it was a good experience on learning some political skills, and I was never a writer, so the writing really came from a different place, as I'm sure you've heard a lot from people in my situation. But I think my gift has always been in public and in person. I'm a little wild and crazy when I speak, and a lot like Bruce Lipton. It's ironic how similar we are when we're on stage speaking to people. So I get a lot of inspiration from him.
Well, he's definitely someone to inspire, But so let's talk about your experience, because I know your background, but for our listeners who maybe have not, you're kind of new to them, or maybe they've heard a little bit about you. I know that you had a terminal diagnosis, and it was something that was really unexpected.
Certainly was. Yeah.
I mean,
and honestly, it's the irony to me that it was really the most miraculous part of the story was one that took some time to find some courage to, and certainly evolve on sharing that aspect. But I started talking about my near-death experience because obviously it was so profound, and I changed so much, and just in processing that, I reached out to the world and shared my experience, but I never told what brought me to the edge, which, again, some of the doctors were very encouraging, that a lot of near-death experiencers, as you know, have shown spontaneous healings that are, all in and of themselves just remarkable and magnificent. And the difference in my story might have been that, and again, it took some time, was that I did it all identical to the Nita Morhanis and those folks in the world, but I did it without a functioning immune system. Mm-hmm. And that was the part that even the Mayo Clinic says, we just don't get it. We can always
I'm sure
fall
they're
back.
Scratching their head with you.
Oh, yeah, and I now speak down there and try to educate them on our population of almost 15 million people out there who've had these experiences, because our physiology changes, and that part has been fairly well documented. But so it did take some time. My diagnosis 5 years ago, I was a married, crazy heterosexual male who, had 2 speeds, 1,000 miles an hour and stopped. And my life was about my career and being successful. And like all of us, the proverbial human race was little race. Mm-hmm. So it was quite humbling to be so ill and never be tested for the inevitable, which finally, when I was nearly bedridden, I had lost my job, which is rare for me. Mm-hmm. And, there I am in an emergency room in North Carolina being told, with my wife sitting next to me, that I was diagnosed with end-stage AIDS. And, that was quite a mouthful, to say the least.
Oh, I'm sure it was a shock, because you're sitting there going, wait a minute, that.
You're so dead on. My first response was, but I'm not gay. And I think about that today and think, how, I don't mean to be mean to myself, and I don't, but how narrow-minded I was to the education, or ignorant to the education of the disease, that, today we see the largest and fastest growing population of new HIV infections are females, ages 13 to 24. So it just seemed like that was not something being talked about. Obviously, the message was clear. I got tested so late because, quote unquote, I wasn't in the risk factor. And I think, there's time to take a different look at this whole scenario. The disease has remained unchecked for 25 years. And I do understand that the gay community, transsexual, bisexual community is adversely affected, and I'm certainly not making that any minimization, but it just seems so resonant to me after my near-death experience that, yes, gay lives matter, but every life matters. And the only way really to make effective change is to collaborate and to get everybody involved, not just one adversely affected population. I have to be honest. I stuffed that disease into a drawer that was not my circus, not my monkeys. And I honestly thought there was more lessons to learn on getting tested. And so we are, that is one of the key components to the book, is trying to loosen up some of this stigma and frankly get rid of it. It's really what's affecting the spread of this disease.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of it, too, is just, not having the knowledge. And you're right about stigma, because when you do hear about, the AIDS population, it was supposedly like, oh, you have to be gay to have that. And that's not the case. That is not the case. And I think, it's so brave of you to come forth and talk about this, because it could save a lot of lives. If people go, oh, well, wait a minute, this isn't just, because it used to be a thing that it was only towards, it's like one portion of the population was affected by this, and that's not how it is,
Yeah, and I don't mind people making decisions on testing and not testing, but I'll be darned if it's going to be based on some ignorance or just not knowing. And, it's almost 50% of the population now is heterosexual. And if you talk, and I talk all throughout the country about this, and people in the room look at me like, are you making this up? Or, and that,
because it's not advertised. I mean, you don't hear about it on, CNN isn't blasting it on the news.
No.
You're not watching it.
And, it's kind of like, I don't know, I find it odd that the disease never discriminated, and unfortunately, we probably shouldn't have either. So.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. And I think there was some grave mistakes just made in the way that was presented, to the public in many ways. But now that with the information that you're bringing forward and the courage that you have in talking about this experience, I think it's really going to help people look at things a little bit differently and go, well, wait a minute, but
gosh, you're so astute on that. It's to date we've had 362 people, and almost every day now I get an anonymous email or sometimes open email and a picture of their HIV test, and I just think to myself, 362, one more, So those are people that found some courage, which. It drives me crazy that we need courage to go in for that test. But again, I don't fight the stigma of what's out there. I just want to put a new face on it, and I just want to talk about it. I think it's important. But a lot of my experience, talking about the near-death experience, I think I get a lot of folks going, well, this really isn't a near-death experience book. And I stand up and say, you're absolutely right. And I hope it isn't. That wasn't the purpose. This was to make social change. And one of the key elements to the book was, wasn't my strength or courage. I get that a lot. But if you really read the book, you'll see that I hail what I think was the reason I survived the impossible without an immune system. And that was just paying attention and collaborating with people who came along at just the right moment, in just the right sequence, manner, and time, and lifted me up, whether it was a 20-second hug or a moment of you can do it, or certainly some people committed a lot more. And, the more I connected, the more I collaborated, the more I healed. And it just struck me as odd that it seems so clear in my near-death experience that, we live in a society of excess, but moderation has always been kind of the key. And that whole talking about things and collaborating and connecting, I didn't have a big publisher and a big marketing thing, and I didn't have a lot of money, and I'm donating most of the proceeds for each book to a charity for HIV awareness. So I really have relied on each and every person, again, that crosses my path to, lift us up and share it with a few more people and a few more people, and almost pyramid it out into, I tried to make it simple. We started a charity where we called it Give a Buck, or GAB, where I just said, what if we all gave $1? And it really wasn't $1, you know what I mean, Marianne? It was just the acknowledgement that okay, I know the real facts. I'm not going to look past it anymore. I'll make decisions based on some information. And that dollar was a symbol of, bang, I'm in. And let's start talking about this. Or at least take 20 seconds and share my story with somebody. Give the book to somebody. Give $1, buy some gear, hats or something. Do something. Just somebody stand up and let's all get involved. And it's just been so remarkable, the outpouring.
Well, and I don't doubt that at all, because you really speak to people at a lot of different levels. So if we're talking to somebody that you kind of hit like all the gamut there, if someone's going through a terminal illness, there's, I felt your book offered a lot of hope, or if, someone's going through HIV and having, times with that, or, just because it is kind of like, there was a stigma of shame that was on that, and I don't think it's that way anymore.
You're right. I think it's getting better, which I'm always the optimist, I guess, forever, and I always stay positive. But I have gotten some pushback from the gay community on occasion that, some folks just have reached out and said, well, this is our disease, and I just, I attack that as. Or are you kidding me? We need to.
Who wants to claim that?
Well, unfortunately, I hate to say it like this because I don't know that this is the reason, but gathering money for HIV has become a big industry. And when you put a different face on it, that's not in that particular cognitive dissonance of what the society's kind of bulked it into, that being the gay disease, you're getting a pushback. It's just not something people have seen. I don't know that they weren't ready for it, but, here I am.
Yeah, and from that, and then also we've got the NDE, which is that's a whole nother, whole nother ball there. And
it's something I didn't know, I had no idea, and I don't know about you, but I was just so busy that I just assumed near-death experience was a dying brain or hallucination, and I still don't take a position on that. And in my book, I'm very, very clear that we are a society driven and conditioned to drama. And I notice it on my blog. I have 50 writings on my blog, and 99% of them, the viewers, just read the near-death experience. Which I get. I totally get it. We're conditioned to it. We love that. It allows, but the interesting thing is all the near-death experiences are uniquely different. But science, after 50 years, is waving a red flag saying, hey, if you're looking for proof, maybe we need to talk about the after effects, because those are almost all the same, timed identically, and that is not a mass delusion. I'm sorry. But, everybody kind of looks at the experience itself and kind of, whether they poke holes in it or grab faith or hope in it, regardless, I just think we're overlooking, again, distracted with the drama of what to me is the real science and the real proof of these events, and that is what happens to the people who come back. We spend tons of money in this world on psychologists to change one creative behavior about our personality, and here we have a population of millions of people coming back from an experience, whether you buy into it or not, that have changed almost everything about their personality, seemingly without effort, and almost timed exactly the same. To me, it's that burning bush, if you will, pardon the pun, of, we need to pay attention to this. And if you really want some information, we now have 50 years worth of good, solid scientific research. So I do hail that in the book. Not of my own research, obviously, but I thought critical aspects that backed up not only my experience, because, dealing with the after effects can be very, very trying.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the thing is, you're right. There is a lot of research that's been done on this. We've got, I know you are really good friends with PMH Atwater. I hope I have her initials correct. I always get them kind of Yeah, okay, good. And I know Kenneth Ring, and then there's Raymond Moody. So we've got all these fabulous people that have weighed in on this and bring that scientific perspective to it. So they can have the PhDs and figure it out, and
exactly.
Other people get to have the not to say that they haven't, but there's the experience that other people have, and then it starts to make sense because there is a lot of commonalities with having an NDE, and when people come back, they're having, either they're healed miraculously or, just things are in such a way that the medical community looks at them and they're like, whoa, we can't explain what just happened to you.
Honestly. And I'm so fortunate, I guess, in a sense, to have been referred to the Mayo Clinics where, some of the world's best physicians, and to lay out this research to them, you'd be shocked at how many people that have been through the medical school, even great training at the Mayo and my various hospitals who helped me along my journey, and how little they actually knew about spiritual awakenings and even spirituality. So, some of it was just, finding out that in all of your medical school, you never once had a class on the placebo. Really? Yeah. How is that functionally possible? So, some of it's just bringing some things into light. And that whole philosophy that if you share a new experience with somebody attached with a great emotion, it stores in a different part of our brain, like why you remember 9/11 or your first kiss. They are attached with tremendous emotions. So that was really the pivotal aspect of my story. I went through a lot, and I guess I didn't realize how much I went through until I went back to write the book. And just, for me it was very hurtful to write it again, but yet very healing to get it all out and realize, hey, man, you just went day by day, but now that it's over, so to speak, you can look back and say, holy cow, how did that happen? Diabetes, tuberculosis, all these things that I had without an immune system, and boom,
blind for 4 months. I'm like, really? Wow.
Crazy.
You were hit with like the gamut of it. It's no laughing matter. I'm, don't think that I'm.
No,
it's just like
I laughed
all
through the
this
whole process.
Yeah,
that was all you could do.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when I've known people who are really, really sick that I deeply care about, and its attitude makes everything throughout all of it. It really is.
Spot on. And I remember during our journey, my sister was a big part of it, and I wouldn't be here without her, and my brother as well. But we have we've always kind of had a weird sense of humor. We've kind of done most of our lives laughing and joking, and I'm grateful for that, because even when I was in hospice, I guess people looked at us sometimes and said, well, you're laughing at a really inappropriate time. And I just thought, really? It's really?
Probably now is the time to laugh, if you're going to laugh.
Yeah, And, at some point it dawned on me that when you're dealing with somebody dying, at some juncture, it has to be more than about you. It's their experience. Let them feel the way they want to. And lo and behold, it's a scientific issue, in whether we're talking placebo or nocebo or epigenetics or the new sciences that are out there that none of us learned about in biology class. And I just think it's important.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they would have taught some of that in biology. It would have made a heck of a lot more sense,
Right?
Oh, thank goodness for people like Dr. Bruce Lipton, I tell you.
Right.
Yeah, he just kind of, wraps that together. And I bring him up because I know you also talk about him in your book, and it just seems, it just brings everything pretty much full circle, pretty much.
Yeah, and you have to have an energetic guy like that to talk about a subject that, I mean, let's be honest, some of this healing process requires a responsibility. And that sometimes can be a jagged pill, no pun intended, for a lot of people. To understand their own magnificence, you can talk to your blue in the face, but I've come to realize, like many, I'm sure you too, And until they have their own experience, it may be futile. But at the same time, the spiritual community really, outlaid an outreach to me. And I never read near-death experience books. I still can't, so I didn't have any, forbidding knowledge of these things. I just wrote from the heart. And come to find out, again, the synchronicity of this world that seems so rampant in a spiritual awakening, my after effects were identical and timed exactly as the research. And, that just is a slap in the face to me to, I've got to pay attention, and at least get an education. Make a solid choice, but do it on a basis of some education. And, today with the Internet, science is telling us we're literally doubling our information as a species every single day. Now, wow, that is power. So, but, we're also busy. Isn't that the truth? We're just so busy. So, hopefully people get the time, and unfortunately sometimes they're forced to make the time, and, ironically, and they'll find the answers. I'm certain of it. But one of the big things for me coming back, like many, was the loss of fear. And, I'm not trying to say I don't have fear of some things, but my fear is not doing enough while I'm here. It isn't about dying. And God knows I had so much shame about my disease originally that if there was a hell, I'm pretty sure I'd have been there. But contrary to, my growing up, there just wasn't one. And I think that's important. There's a lot of apprehension and a lot of fear. And I think it's an absolute critical aspect of triggering not only the epigenetics in your cells, but, even Dr. Lipton's not alone. Your human body made up of cells only works in two states. And the science is very clear. The fear or fight or flight is when your cells aren't operating at their maximum. And overexposure to that kind of environment is deadly, just deadly.
And most people live in that range, from work and coffee and
well, we're surrounded by it. Our news media, or it goes on and on. We don't take a responsibility, and I get that people try to warn you, and I'm on Facebook so much with my business that I just see it. It's 70% of what's posted is some sort of warning about this is going to kill you, that's going to kill you. There's almost nothing that's going to kill you in moderation. The problem is we're a society of excess, and everything's faster, easier, and don't worry, we'll get a pill for that. And it just has become so easy for many to keep the speed of life going. I suspect that we find out later that the easiest things obviously aren't always the best. So.
Thank you so much for being on the show again today, Robert. I so greatly appreciate your time and love you sharing your story with us. It's a profound story. Definitely our readers want to go ahead and pick up your book either at your website or on Amazon. And again, just thank you for taking the time being here with us today.
It's such a pleasure. And if you don't mind, this isn't to gain an interview, but I think it's important to thank you. You are bringing some light to this world, and people like that are rare. So bless your heart, and thank you for sharing some time with me.
Oh, you're so sweet. You just made my day.
20-second moment. Boom. Love it.
Yeah, me too. Love it. You got to love moments like that. Okay, and for all of our listeners, I'd like to thank you for tuning in today. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pestana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepestana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.